Anya. I am just so glad that you are leading the way, that you've endured through the pandemic.
Absolutely.
I can't even imagine the triumphs and tragedies that you have experienced, not only personally, but also professionally. So can you just tell us about your passion for education and just what leads you to come back to this space every day?
For sure. I mean, I've been in education now 10 years, and I realized that, in life, some of us feel as though we have like a calling or we're just good at something. For me, this is an assignment on my life. I am a very proud educator. The experiences that I had as a child within an education system growing up in Virginia were experiences that I really honestly wouldn't wish on any other child. And so one of the things that drives me, and that is really a true strong part of my why, is being able to offer opportunity and experiences that I know that children, given certain, whether it be demographics or location, would not have access to. And so looking at access and exposure, I recognize that, when it comes to us, and when I say us, referring to black and brown individuals, I recognize that exposure and access are two of the things that will propel us into the future. And so I made a vow personally a long time ago that I, in a position of leadership, I would always not only be open to that, but be very intentional about giving those opportunities and allowing students to have those opportunities. When I was back in college, one of the things that really drove me to be an educator in the first place was just recognizing and problem solving around the current state of blacks in this country. And I recognized very quickly that we were underperforming. Even if we stated that children were getting the best education, we were still underperforming in comparison to our counterparts. And that, in a lot of cases, has nothing to do with income or socioeconomic. That is simply based off just race. Us being behind the curve. And so, when I recognized that, I just felt like a tug in my spirit to just say, okay, I love kids. I've always worked with children. Why not take my passion for English and my passion for African American studies and black people and combine them and get into the classroom and not only offer children like the bomb education as far as ELA curriculum goes, but also that hidden curriculum, one that really focuses on, now that I've gained this content knowledge, how do I use that to better my community? Yeah. How do I use that to better myself? And so I've always viewed myself as an educator that for children who look like me and those even who don't, or maybe have had different experiences, like just being intentional about that and just using education as a way of liberation, which it is. And so that's really what brings me back to this building every day. I love this community. I'm very proud to serve this community. I live in this community. And when I go to the store, I see my kids. They see me and they light up, and we both light up. And it's just those things, those experiences that I believe educators must be holistic. And so as an educator, I choose to live in this community because I want to know what the experiences of my students are. That is one way that I feel like I best serve the population that I've chosen to show up every day for. And so far it's just been proven to be effective. Come here every day and I don't leave feeling depleted or drained. A lot of times I'm already thinking about the next day and just excited, jotting down notes, sending emails and things like that, just planning. And just being fully invested in intentional about the next day, and then what the following months look like, and next year looks like, and certain things. And so just excited that I get to do this work. This is certainly a privilege.
Yes, I feel the excitement.
Yeah, thank you.
And it is infectious, and I love how you talk about this wholeness that
absolutely
you want to bring to the work, and just look at the whole child or being. And you talked about opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
Giving them opportunities. And what opportunity was it that you saw coming into this community? Colorado, Denver.
Right.
What opportunity was it that just called you like, yes, that's what I want to do?
Right. So I'll kind of go back a little bit. The organization that I currently work for, KIP, I was first exposed way back in 2000. I want to say 2006 maybe. And I have a cousin who has since obviously graduated school, but she attended KIP Star in Harlem, New York. And I distinctly remember having a conversation with her. And she stated, I'm about to take an end of the year trip and we're going whitewater rafting somewhere out like Midwest. And I said, oh, wow. Like, what school is taking, these black children from Harlem, New York to go whitewater rafting? And I'm like, girl, you've never gotten in any water. How's that going to go? But that sparked an interest in me. And so I started doing some research on, just KIP in the program, the organization itself. And KIP actually stands for Knowledge is Power Program. And so did some research there. Fast forward a few years went by. 2015 came. And of course, I'd been a teacher and whatnot. And I thought about, what new venture do I want to try? What's going to be the one that challenges me? Where can I see myself growing as an educator, as a woman, as a black woman, and I feel like just teach me things I've never been exposed to. So I thought of KIP. At that time, I made the decision to apply for 2 different KIP regions, one in Atlanta, the Atlanta region and the Jacksonville, Florida region. Went to both interviews. I actually got both job offers as an ELA teacher, and I chose Jacksonville, Florida as a region. Probably solely because at that time the principal was just amazing, and he just there was something in him that tugged my spirit that pushed me and pulled me there. So I went there and spent 6 years with KIP Jacksonville, and I learned a lot, and honestly a lot of the things that I learned there I see in me as a leader today. Fast forward, I left KIP Jacksonville for a leadership position as an assistant principal with KIP Texas. And so, I had that experience, and that was actually during the pandemic year.
Wow.
So, and I know we'll get to that, talking about that, but that was one of the, we'll get to that, because that's a whole nother question in itself. But, fast forward, I got my experience there as an AP at a high school there, and then I had an opportunity. I received a call from a friend of mine in education who basically said, hey, I have this assistant principal job with Green Dot Public Schools, and I believe that you're the best person for the job. And so I said, okay, I'm in there. And so made the decision to move from the Houston, Texas area to the Beaumont, Texas area, where I worked for Green Dot, and I was a turnaround principal because the individual that had called me ended up resigning from that position. And so next in line was me. And yes, it was the year after the pandemic. So I started in 2021. And what I'll say is that today, as I think about how I got here, it's, in my personal opinion, it has been nothing but divine intervention for me. And so, last year was a rough year, if I can just be honest with you. And but it was a learning year, and it was a year where I really found who I am as an educator as well, and especially not just an educator, but as a principal, and what that means to truly lead a school and lead a community and lead children to change the generations that are supposed to come after them. And so I started looking around for a new position in November because, unfortunately, sometimes we work for organizations that we are misaligned with. My personal morals and values did not align with the organization, so I made, I remember I took a weekend and I thought to myself, I said, okay, as an educator, where have I felt the most fed? Where have I felt the most developed? Where have I felt the most success? And I immediately thought of KIP. And so, knowing me, I love to move around a little bit. I went to the KIP.org website and I said, okay, where next? And I looked at a few different regions, did a little bit of research around the cost of living and all the things that you're supposed to do. And I landed on Denver and Indianapolis. And I said, okay, we're gonna see, we're gonna go with that. And so I got pretty far in the process with both regions, and I had a final interview here with my current boss. Her name is Leah Peters, and the CEO, Tommy Amos. And We were almost done, and I was paused. I was paused by Leah, and she said, "Stop." And I said, "Oh my goodness." I'm thinking to myself, like, what have I done wrong? And she says, we have a spot for you. We have a place where we feel like you're going to be the best at. And she said, we need you at the high school. We need you over in the far northeast at the high school. And I said to myself, I said, oh wow. I said, okay. God doesn't make mistakes. Intervention, divine intervention especially, knows what's going on and what's happening. And so it's history from there. Like, I came on out here. I was actually just sharing this with someone the other day. Like, February of last year was my first time ever touching foot in Denver. And when I got here, it was snow on the ground. I walked in the door and I immediately fell in love with the community, the school, the students, staff members that I had met at that time. And I just said to myself, okay, this is what's next. And I made the decision, one that I've never made before, to live in the community that I serve. Where I worked at and where I've lived before, I've always commuted 25, 30 minutes, and I've been okay with that. But this time around, I said no. It is important to me to be a representation of where I choose to serve. And that's how I got here. That's how I got here. And it was a great decision, and I'm really proud of the opportunity that I have here to not only, change a school community, but also work alongside with the community and partner with parents and families and children and area businesses and universities and colleges to really honestly show what's possible. And that's how I think about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Woo, that is amazing. I'm like, it just sounds like it feels right.
Absolutely.
Like every single decision point and just the path.
Right.
And it, it's always that way when we look back. So I think what I'm wondering now is just when you look back to, we'll say March 2020.
Yes.
Just where you were in life, and us being here today, like this very moment when you look back, do you feel like the time in between, as in pandemic, quarantine, like all of the above, do you think it made you more resilient personally and professionally?
Yeah. I have to kind of give a little bit of a story in order for me to answer this, because my biological mother, passed away in February 2020. And I remember traveling to South Carolina where she had passed, and not really having no idea that what was to come the next month. Shortly after her passing, I made the decision to travel up to Detroit. And I distinctly remember, that was actually March of 2020. I remember getting back off the plane when we landed back in Florida from Detroit, and literally going to the store to try to buy sanitizer and Lysol, and there being none. I remember that. I remember being terrified. I remember feeling like I didn't know this was coming and I don't know what to do. At that time, we were nearing spring break. And, all the, people whisper and they hear things, people who, have insight to certain things at the state level or the the district level, kind of they say things, but you just really just wasn't sure. And I remember when we got that email, I was working for Kip Jacksonville at the time, we got that email that basically stated, we're not returning after spring break. We'll send out further details. After, we were just like, wow, oh, this is real. And at that time, I was a grade level chair, content lead, and an English teacher. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know how to teach if I'm not in the classroom and I don't have kids who are tangible. And what do I do? And I just remember having to create a Google Classroom. Hadn't done that before. And I remember saying, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to my special population of students who have IEPs or 504s? How can I make sure that they learn over a computer screen? And I just remember like everyone during that time was just trying to stay afloat. We were real time trying to make adjustments to instruction, real time trying to hand out computers, real time trying to make sure that every child had access, whether it be through a hotspot or an actual subscription to an internet provider, all of those things. And I remember thinking to myself, I've gotten into education a long time ago, and all these years I thought we progressed, and we still saw a gap. There was still an access gap, right? And so when I think about resiliency and I think about the leader that I am today, what I will say is not a whole lot of us made it through. People left in just massive amounts that year, like that March 2020, that June 2020, there were so many educators that just chose to leave because it had gotten so hard. Not only that, but just the ability and just the sheer amount of sickness going around, like just all those different things were major factors in what contributed. And so on the logistical side of it, you know, as a teacher, covering other teachers as who had left their classrooms, and you know, having to gather data for students I had never taught, and just all those different moving parts. I mean, yeah, I'm built different.
Yes.
Like, you know, and so I don't say that like in a cocky way. I say that because I'm now able to walk in what God put me in, right? And so I just think about it in the sense of resiliency, yes, but it's always been in me. It's always been in me. And that's one thing from the time I was a child, looking back on childhood and looking back on just going through. I became a mom at 19, freshman year in college, well, sophomore year at that time. But, you know, all the different things that had contributed to my life and that kind of like that I went through built me into the person that I am today. And I have a point of view on education that I can't with good faith say not many other people have, because there are people who do have it. But I am unrelentless about the education that I know Black and brown children deserve. And so I don't know if I can label it resiliency. I label it like I just don't take my gift lightly, you know, and I'm just really intentional about it. Yeah. That's that. And yes, there's a level of resiliency, but there's also a level of point of view and why that people have that pushes them to stay in this work. And if you don't have that from the beginning, like my why is so strong, it is unwavered for the last 10 years. You know, the last 8 years, it's still the same thing. And so the resiliency piece, yes, but I feel so passionately about what children deserve that I'm not willing to compromise on that. You know, so yeah, that's just where that's just kind of like where I'm coming from. You know, yeah.
Wow, that unpacked a lot, and what's rising to the top for me right now is, was there a defining moment, or just any moment in time where you can remember that you had to remind yourself of that why, like something that just got so hard, a real pain point, if you will. Like, what was a moment where you were like it was kind of the fork in the road, like, no, I need to remind myself, like, this is why we do this. Is there any moment that's coming to mind right away?
Honestly, not to sound too cliche, but as an educator and as a person in general, there are times where I have to check myself, but I have always, are there days where I get tired? Yes. But there's never been a fork in the road for me. I've known for a long time that this is what I was meant to do. And I always said to myself, I had a situation happen back when I was in Jacksonville with a student, and not a direct situation, but a situation involving him that just opened my eyes to what, like, refocused me. And I always said, and I remember saying to God on the way home, I said, okay, if I'm ever given an opportunity to be in a leadership position where I can make the decisions, I would never take that for granted. Never take that for granted. So there's never been a moment since I have been in a leadership role where I have said to myself, I don't know if I can do this.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm built for this work, and I got to remind myself, or I got to make myself get up. I got to make myself come to work and serve children. I got to make myself like, dude, there's never been a moment like that.
Yes.
There's never been a moment. I've always been just driven internally by my personal story, the story of my brother, the story of the student who made a poor decision. But there were other things that happened before that poor decision that we had, as the adults, had control over and we didn't do right. Those are things that I said I would never, not on my watch, want to see happen again. So yeah. I mean, I love this work. I feel passionately about it. And passion to me is different than just like getting up and clocking in. You know, there's a deeper reason why I do this work. So
Yeah. So, man, you've talked about, you had grief before the pandemic was the pandemic. And I'm sorry to hear about your mother.
Yes, thank you.
I'm relating to you also as a parent. You mentioned your daughter. She had education to track along the way as well. So can you just talk a little bit about that perspective as a parent?
Oh, absolutely.
And, just I want to see the personal side of, you being this, I'll say, superhero leader. Who's purposeful and on a mission, but yet you still have these personal elements, that you gotta tend to as well. Right.
It's so personal. It's so personal. I actually am a proud mother of 4, and I'm a single mom. And I am, every day I get up, that is my biggest privilege. And that is my biggest thing that I'm proud of, because I know I'm raising great kids. And I'm sorry if I get a little emotional. I just, the pandemic year was rough because I'd never seen my kids really truly struggle. And I actually have 2 children who have IEPs and have a different set of needs. And I really truly did see, unfortunately, it was almost like that dual consciousness of like mom, leader, that juxtaposition of like, this is what's right and I know what's happening, but like I'm also like stuck in this box as well. And so I literally, in some settings, I remember saying to myself, this feels so conflicting because I, as an educator, I know what my children need and they're not getting it over the computer. And so that 2020 year was rough. It was rough. And I recognized that in that moment, I had to choose often the emotional needs addressing over the academic needs. And that was what the difference is with the pandemic year, is that not a lot of us recognized and was able to tend to the emotional, the social emotional learning needs of students at home, given this whole scope of everything happening in the world, happening in class, all of those things. Kids being frustrated because they like school and they can't socialize with their friends. They can't raise their hand and ask a teacher for help. All of those things took a toll on our kids. Not just mine, but that was rough as an educator, watching that and seeing it happen in real time. And also knowing that as an educator, I too was trying to keep my promise to other families, but also keep true what I know I needed to do for the generations that are to come after me. Yes. And so I remember one of my, I really truly just respect him deeply. His name is Principal Kafele, and I've read all his books and all those things, but he posed a question the other day online, and it's like, is education what you do or who you are? And I answered that question on his Facebook post, and I'm paraphrasing, but I said something to the effect of, as a mother, and as a mother who is an educator, and as a mother who is a principal, I recognize that more than likely my children will interact with the students that I teach and that I lead, right? And so I have to be so intentional about the things and program, like everything that encompasses this building in my school, because they will likely interact with my children. And so part of me showing up as a great mom as a great mom and is being a great educator, and so it was so hard to separate that, and like that dissonance, that feeling that I felt during that 2020 year was one that, I wasn't prepared for. But again, I applied the same skill set through life that I've had. I got through it. Mm-hmm. But personally, I even see it now. Like today, my children are brilliant. Number one, so I believe the children I serve are brilliant. But when I think on a personal note, as a mom, I'm now able to see that they're back in the building, and I have 3 more. They all are at K&DMS, same building as K&E, and I see how excited they are to just be in class and to get to do partner work or group work or to get to talk to the teacher. I have my youngest daughter plays basketball, things like that were taken from children, not by their choice, but that they're able to do again. I see how much they need that. They need that for proper development. And not saying that development can't happen without it, but they need it for to be their best selves, right? And so on a personal note, we as a family, my 4 children and I are getting our mojo back. As they say, we're getting our groove back. Because now we see, number one, you are now stronger than you ever were. Because before the pandemic, most kids were I just show up to school and just do my thing. But if those babies made it through that pandemic year on those computers and was able to sit and still pass classes and pass state tests and all those things, they can do anything. And that's one thing that when you talk about resiliency, I think about what, if anything, the pandemic has shown us, we can do anything. There is nothing that we can't do. There just isn't.
Yeah.
The way that we used to think about education and access is no longer the same. Because that year showed us what essentially is possible, Right. Was it perfect? Oh no. We also saw a lot of slide. We saw summer slide, we saw year slide, we saw a lot of slide. But we also know okay, now we can bounce back. That's possible. So yeah.
Yeah. You answered my next question was, as you referred to the slide,
right.
Is it possible to recover?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned getting your mojo back. Is it all doom and gloom, as we look back, or is it hope and inspiration looking forward because we know what we went through?
Right. I think it's twofold, right? So, at the end of the day, children lost during that year, and I know saying that sounds extremely negative. So I do want to clear it up a little bit, but when I say children lost, virtual learning is just not the best. We all know, those who are in education, we understand that was not an ideal situation to learn in. And so we had to be very intentional about how then to address those gaps that we knew existed from that year. And that's when acceleration plans came into place. That's when being intentional about planning came to play. Not saying, again, those things happened before, but now the intentionality around recognizing what gaps existed solely because students were in virtual learning, and then how do we address those now that we're back in person? And so it's just now about intentionality. Some of those gaps still exist, but we are all now, we hit the ground running. Yes, there is a joy just being in a building and seeing kids every day. That just lights me up. It's just joyful. Not only that, but there's hope. Because again, if we could sit through computers in that year and still push through and get to a point where we can return to a brick and mortar school building and at least thrive in learning, we're making progress. Now that year directly after the pandemic, like I said, last year was different. It was different. One of the things that I'll go into saying, I know this is not directly for that question, but I made a mistake as a school leader last year. And that was not addressing the social emotional needs of students fully. You know, thinking to myself, oh, we lost so much during this year, we gotta jump into academics, But that really wasn't the case. The case was that students needed to understand school again. Students needed to understand what it meant to sit into a classroom and to have interpersonal relationships with their peers and to interact with their teacher. And teachers as well also needed a lot of support, more support than I've ever seen.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, wow, how powerful for you to own that and
Oh, yeah.
recognize, like, yeah, we missed it here, but was there a moment where you shifted and said, okay, no, we're going to fix it and make this a priority for students and teachers?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely it was. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I said, you know, I would say it was the start of this year. I said I will not make the same mistake and have to work from behind again.
Mm-hmm.
So coming into this year, I said, at the end of the day, like, I don't know how their experience was fully last year, but this year, we're going to get to know each other. We're going to get to know why we're here. Like, my teachers spent the first 2 weeks of school getting to know students.
Yeah.
That was extremely important to me. And students spent the first 2 weeks getting to know their teachers. And then we talked about curriculum and instruction. Because one thing I know for true, and which is why I've always gotten results, and which is why I will always get results, is because before I touch content, I'm going to always get to know you as a person.
Yeah.
You're going to know that I love you. You're going to know that I'm going to rock with you. You're going to know that I got your back. And you're going to know that you can come to me. And because that is important for children to understand and know before they try to access any material with the teacher. Because if they feel like that teacher doesn't know them or love them or respect them or know their community or know their family, they are not going to get the best from your class. And at the end of the day, we are here to educate children. And we are here to educate them holistically. And part of that is, who are you as a person first?
Wow.
In addressing that. Yeah.
It changes everything.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, certainly creates a culture that, I mean, I don't even have to ask this question, but just the culture of how do you inspire and when it comes to the teachers specifically,
Right.
You know, how do you motivate them and make them feel valued so that they want to stay?
Right.
I know
Right.
just too many teachers to count that have left, as you mentioned, and haven't looked back because there wasn't, I don't even know if there was ever the passion that you mentioned and the purpose. But wow, what a place to be where the leader starts with that. Like, first of all, let's, who are you? Come to the table with that. So how would you speak to the teacher's experience
Right.
as
Right.
their leader?
Right. Number one, I don't forget that I started in the classroom.
Wow.
There are too many people who are in leadership positions that forget that they were in the trenches at some point. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so, number one, I know instruction really well, and I know how to gather kids in. And so, when I think about that, I'm not even going to, first of all, sit here and act like it's not work, because it is. Retention and staff retention is work. I am inheriting, maybe not the most ideal situation, but I love a challenge. And like I said, I love this community enough to show up every day and do what I need to do. Any type of change leadership, you're going to see some kind of turnover. But one of the things that I wanted to be intentional about, and I remember during summer PD, I asked teachers to tap into why you do this work. Why is it important for you to be here in this year, in this season? And you have to be very clear about that before you step foot into your classroom. Because if you're not clear about the population that you choose to serve or why you choose to show up every day, when it gets tough, your first option is going to be to do what? Run.
Yes.
You know? And so I love on people. I always try to lead by example, to be honest with you. I really try to lead by example. Every day when kids walk in, they see Miss Rich. at that door, in the hallway. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's it going? So nice to see you. I'm glad you're here. Good morning. They see me. I always believe in that. If you don't lead by example, then what are you doing? Number one. Number two, you give them support. I have a really strong leadership team that I'm super proud to lead, but I have the right people on that leadership team that also are aligned with my morals and values and belief in students and belief in what's possible here. And so that's part of it. Like, if people feel supported, they stay.
Yes.
Of course, there are other reasons why people leave, whether it be familial or, there are other things that exist. But, like right now, for example, we're in 12 days of holiday giveaways. Every single day, starting December 1st until December 16th, we are giving teachers gifts. Like, every single teacher in this building or staff member in this building gets a gift. Like, today they got fuzzy socks.
Yeah.
Go rub your feet together at home with your loved one. Like, people love that kind of stuff. But not only that, there's a big gift. Today we gave away a massager. Yesterday we gave away a crock pot. And that's like, that was, if you all are at Morning Circle on time, you will get a red ticket. And your ticket will be entered into a drawing, and you'll get picked to get something just for being here and showing up. And so, like, that's part of motivation as well. So every opportunity we've had to just love on people and just, like, make life a little easier is what we've tried to do. At the end of the day, you have to commit yourself to show up as an educator. You do.
Yes.
You have to commit yourself to lesson planning. You have to commit yourself to making phone calls home. You have to commit yourself to grading work on time. You have to commit yourself to giving kids feedback so they can make adjustments. You have to commit yourself to continuous growth as a professional. You just do. And if you show up and willing to do that, there's a reward for that. You have to be very clear, though. Like, when I say my expectation is unwavering for what people do in this building for Black and brown children. And I won't waver from that. I won't lower the expectation to meet people where they are because this field is hard, or because it's at times it feels, difficult. Like, that is not serving kids. We are not just like, we're not like adults first, kid friendly. We're kids first, adult friendly. And that's just how it is. And I'm very clear about that. But yeah, I believe that, the teachers that I have in the building right now are the right ones. And you've had a little bit of staff turnover, but I'm not afraid of that. I firmly believe that the universe and God will align who needs to be in the space at any given time.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's excellent. And sounds like morale, like, it just helps. Again, I go back to the culture.
Right.
Creating the environment where you want to be, where you feel like you belong, and
And that's it, a culture of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people want to be seen.
Yeah.
They want to be heard.
Yeah.
They want to feel valued. And we try every opportunity we can. We try to honor that.
I feel
without compromising the experience of children.
Yes, I feel that so much. Is there anything else? Because wow, I think you are such a bright light.
Oh, thank you.
And like, I'm thankful that you're in my community.
Right, I appreciate that.
Yeah, value so much your leadership.
Right.
And definitely gonna be praying that you are fed in the way that you're feeding others.
Right. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share? Like something as an educator, leader, parent,
right,
community member,
right,
something that you want to share with our readers, community, just anything else we haven't mentioned?
Just understand that in education, it can't be one-sided. All stakeholders have to be unwavering in what they believe is possible for children. That involves the school, that involves the family, that involves the student. Everyone has to be involved. Everybody has to show up. But at the end of the day, there's still a child that's in that situation. And children, you know, they make decisions for themselves sometimes, but they're still children. And so I would just say that, you know, looking forward, the optimism that I have does not solely involve me. It involves everybody, the community, parents, the children, of course. Like, it involves everybody. And so my path forward is one that I believe will be collaborative, you know, collaborative and in partnership. I have a really big vision for this school specifically and what's possible. And I want to be the #1 school in Denver. I'll just say that right now, and I'll put it on the record. I want KIPP Northeast Denver Leadership Academy to be the #1 performing high school in Denver, Colorado. Not just the far Northeast, but Denver, Colorado. And I mean what I say. And I believe in what I say. And we need help. This is an open door. I want parents in the building. I want community members in the building. I want journalists in the building. I want y'all to see what we're doing here. Because this, like, you know, a lot of times I think people speak on education and they have no idea what goes on in these walls. Because this work is not easy. But if you love it enough, you'll just be able to do anything. And I love it enough. I really do. So yeah, come see about us.
Yes.
That's what, to see what we about. Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
I'm just like, wow. I didn't know who I was going to talk to about this story, but you are a gift from God.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I was like, yeah, just, again, like, yeah. I didn't know what was going to come out of this conversation.
Please come
hit,
back.
like, so many points.
Yeah,
I'm here,
please.
so yeah.
I want Black History Month, you know, one thing, like, I just believe in serving the population. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we, you know, Dia de los Muertos, we had few weeks back, November 2nd, we had a celebration for that. Hispanic Heritage Month, we had a celebration for that. Like, if you're not serving the community that you, like, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, and so, like, you know, Black History Month, come on, we have women's history. Like, there's so many different things and opportunities to just honor the experience of people. And I know that this school and this community has never had a Black woman lead this school, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud, and I'm so proud to show off what we're about. You know, and so yes, I would love to have you back for Black History Month and just to see the great things we have going on.
I said I will make it.
Yes,
my plan.
yes, I will. I will definitely lock you in and keep your email and let you keep you abreast on what we have planned.
Yeah, just any event. I am like 5 minutes up the road.
Absolutely,
so.
yep. I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Julia.